And a very warm welcome to the Property Developers and Investor podcast. It's Nigel Greene here from the Equa Academy, and I'm absolutely delighted today to have Jo Balston with me. Hi, Jo.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. Thank you for asking me.
Oh, you're very, very welcome, and thank you for coming along. It's can't wait to hear the story, to be honest with you, because you and certainly Michelle are doing some amazing things in that sort of Southampton area, which is just absolutely incredible. So I'm sure we're going to hear a few snippets about what you've been up to. But I think in the first instance, just to help the listeners, maybe you can just do an introduction to yourself and a bit about your background, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. So obviously I'm Jo, and I run a property development company called JMBH Developments with my business partner Michelle, who you just mentioned. And we are based in Southampton, predominantly because that's kind of the centre point between Michelle and I and where we both live. So it's convenient, but it's not exclusively Southampton. We'll kind of, it's an area of travel really. And we've just been working on a project which is just coming to completion now, which is a conversion of 2 office buildings using PD to create 10 flats, and then it had a full planning application as well for another one on the top, so 11 flats in total. And yeah, we're kind of looking now for our next opportunity. We've got some stuff in the pipeline, so yeah, that's kind of what we're doing.
Yeah, it's a lovely development that you're just about to finish as well, which is great, in the final throes, which is awesome. And how you found that property, and there's a bit of a story behind that as well. But again, I'm sure we'll touch on that in a bit. But can I ask you, I mean, what made you choose property as your vehicle to wealth and success?
I had a bit of an epiphany moment, and I was trying to figure out how long ago it was. It was probably about 7 years ago that I had this kind of turn point in my mind. And I've always loved spaces and buildings, and through my career I've worked as an interior designer, mainly commercial stuff and public sector stuff, so quite a different area, and I've done that for sort of 20 years. And about 7 years ago I was living as a single mum with my little boy, who was probably about 5 at the time. That's how I've kind of figured it out. He's 12 now. And I was doing my job, which I was, paid quite well for as a contractor, in interior designer in the kind of quite some fairly big developers and stuff. And it was quite a good job. The downfall of that was that I spent all of my time working, and I used to, take him, drop him at my mum or at the childminder, go to work, come back, pick him up and put him to bed. And I kind of suddenly stood there one day and I went, this is absolutely rubbish. I really can't see how I can sustain this long term, because he's growing really fast. I don't see him. And then when I do have him, I haven't got any money left at the end of all of that to actually, do anything of quality with him. And it was a really kind of rubbish time. And I had this little teapot in the cupboard that I literally used to take cash out of the bank and put it in the teapot. And that was my budget for stuff, nice stuff. And if I ran out of, in fact, literally I used to put petrol, food and nice stuff in there. And if I ran out of money from the teapot, that was it. It's crazy. And I decided at that point that there had to be a better way, that I needed to do something else. I didn't really know what that was going to be. But I knew that I loved the idea of doing development. I just didn't know how I would get there. And I started kind of literally Googling, how can I increase my income, and kind of part-time, and like literally searching wherever I could find. And I started exploring networking and going to some local networking. And there were a number of little local networking groups for property around. So I went to those, and I thought, what's the easiest way for me to kind of get in and talking to people and feel like I had some credibility? And so I was kind of like going from the angle of, I've spent my career doing design, spaces for people. I understand how improving a space visually can, increase yields, can increase sale values. And if you've got an HMO, increase tenancy and all of this stuff. So I'll go in with that angle and kind of talk to people about that as a kind of, foot in the door. And that's what I started doing. And it was kind of one of those learning experiences really Like I'll go to those networking events and I'll just kind of suck it all in and hopefully come across some path that will get me to where I want to be. And that's what I did. And ultimately through that, I found someone who offered me some mentorship for a year. And then I took that mentorship to learn how to do development that we're doing now. So that was a bit of a long answer, but that's kind of what got me onto that path. It wasn't so much about the wealth, honestly. It was more about the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think a lot of people can resonate with that and appreciate that. And a lot of people are in the same situation, that they've got the job and, they feel got to go to work and earn the money, but it's at what cost, isn't it?
Mm.
And I know personally, I was in a very similar situation some years ago, but I was kind of flying all over the world doing various projects, but I miss the children growing up, and that was one of my big regrets. And but I see it so much now, of people that are in this very similar situation, and even when you're with them, having that big powerful job and Monday mornings looming, it's trying to be present in the moment as well with them.
Mm.
And you're trying to be there, and you're not thinking about that meeting on Monday morning, I've got to prep for it and I've got to do it sometime on Sunday, and those sort of aspects, which it's a big motivator to say no more, isn't it? Very much so.
It is a big motivator, but I'm really pleased that, and actually when you think about that, it was 7 years, wasn't it? So and in 2019 was when I stopped my job and decided I was going to do, branch out, do my new thing. Didn't quite know what it was going to be at that point. Bit of a worrying time, but I did it. And from that point onwards, I kind of have been working on that mindset of how do I want my life to be? So putting the boundaries of that up in place now, and from that moment. So in response to what you're just saying about, Sunday nights and dreading Monday mornings and all the prep and all the things, am I ready? That it does shift quite a lot when you're working for yourself, but at least you're in control of that. And there's still an element of that. But at least you feel that you're in control of how that happens around, what you need to do.
Yes, absolutely. No, that's really resonates, with your story there for sure. But maybe tell us. Oh, actually, I'm going to ask you how you met Michelle, your business partner.
Okay, well, like I said, I was doing this networking, and she's, we don't live that far apart. I did see her at networking events. I became aware of her through those networking events, and then when I joined on the mentorship program that I did for that year, that was the training piece that got me kind of started. She was also there. And it was a very small number of people. And so we got to know each other very well over that course of time. And we hadn't decided we were going to work with each other at the end of that. But I think what happened was fairly near the end of that kind of year, there was some deal analysis practice going on. And I brought in a couple of deals and we were going through them. And the general response around the table was, well, this is quite a good one, Jo. Like this, you found quite a good one here. And I'd obviously completely backed off because I was thinking, well, that's all very well, but I have no idea how I would pay for it. How am I going to do it financially? Sure. And she picked up on that and she said, don't let that be the reason for not taking a jump, because, I've spent a number of years working and with people who I've built up a rapport with, who are interested in investing. Yeah. And so I can bring that to the table. And, she would admit that her strengths are not necessarily in seeing what something could be, yes, like imagining something, yeah, once the work's been done, which is where I can kind of see that. Mm-hmm. So bringing the two things together has worked quite well. So
that, yeah, absolutely. And that beautiful kind of combination of different skills as well, skill sets. And, I think people that are perfectly cloned, it kind of don't work, do they? Because all you're doing, you're just doubling everything, the good stuff and the bad stuff, whereas if you've got people of opposing skills, you've got that ability to cover all the bases and have a debate from different perspectives as well, which is absolutely really very healthy. So that's really good.
She's got a very strong background in business as well, because she spent years running her own businesses, whereas I'd come from something where I didn't have to ever think about that side of it.
No, I understand.
So that would have been another really big learning gap for me, but having her there doing, helping with that learning gap has been hugely beneficial to me. So
that's brilliant. I mean, maybe just moving to the projects. I mean, could you tell us a bit about some maybe the key milestones and achievements in your property journey thus far?
Well, the main thing is that we've just completing this development that we've started, and it feels like a massive achievement when I stop and think about it. When you're in the moment of it, you kind of lose that, don't you? Because you're just moving for the next, what's the next thing, what's the next thing, what's the next thing. But it has been a huge achievement, and one of the biggest changes for us is that kind of difference in credibility from when you're first starting making those phone calls and speaking to agents or whoever it is and trying to get people to listen to you, to now where we've got a team around us of people that we can draw on, and that feels like a huge change from when we started. Milestones, other milestones, I don't know. I mean, I suppose the process of getting that building was a very long-winded one, because it involved offering on something, that being rejected, the next door building coming onto the market with the same agent and being offered it almost off market, and then the other one coming back on the market because the deal went wrong for some reason. And so that kind of realization that things, sometimes it's a long game. You have to wait, you have to kind of keep the touch points going and wait. And
I think if I had £1 for every time somebody said sorry, it's been sold, I'd be extremely wealthy from that perspective. But it's never sold until it's completed, is it, Jo? And that's the point. If you can get your offers in, and irrespective of whether they're accepted or not, even if if they're not, it's your offer. It's nobody can say, "Oh, that's not right," or because you've analysed it in a certain way to spit out that number. And it's all about just getting those numbers in, getting those offers in, and having them sat on people's tables, because I think you're proof and testament to that fact that people do come back. Not all deals get transacted for one reason and another, and and I think the outcome of what's happened, you've got ×2, haven't you, which has enabled you to do a lot more within the development as well. Which is just great. Jo, we know we have challenges, and things don't always go according to plan, do they?
No.
But I'm wondering if you could just maybe take us through some of the things that you've encountered, maybe unexpectedly, and how you overcame the challenge. Get me teeth in.
There have been challenges through the project, which I think you expect there to be, things like funding not arriving when you hope it's going to arrive. We had one of the buildings was not registered at all with Land Registry, and that can take apparently 2 years to register a building. Who knew? On Land Registry. It was expedited, but it still took 3 months, and that's a 3-month gap where a bank couldn't put a charge on the building, so therefore you don't get your funding. Things like that happen, and thank goodness for the team that you have around you to kind of move them forward. I think the more unexpected challenge for me has been a mindset challenge, actually, which I continually have to work on. And it's ironic, given that I'm sitting here talking to you, but it's communication and being able to feel comfortable to do that. And that's huge, because actually every single thing that we've done through this whole process has been around relationship building. So if there's some sort of challenge in your mindset that you either haven't figured out yet or you're working on, that can, it can have a big impact. So, and I didn't really know that was going to be an issue for me. I've never really sort of thought about it before, but I started to recognize that and maybe this is partly generational, I don't know, but I'm really reluctant to pick up the phone and speak to somebody. Like, I would really procrastinate about it, and then probably email because it's too scary. So I'm just going to, I'll just do my email. which doesn't really work because you don't build rapport that way, do you? So it really have to get out of your own way and speak to people. And I've ended up going through quite a cycle because I've done some hypnotherapy on this, and I've done some heart healing on this, and all sort of various things, but it's massively helped.
Yeah.
And I remember having a conversation with someone probably at the beginning of probably around that time, 2019, and she said if it's really a struggle, then just write down on a piece of paper, what's the one thing I have to have from this, the one thing I have to gain from this conversation, and how can I have fun with this? And stick it to your monitor, so that before you even pick up the phone, you're like, okay, what's the one thing? Because once the one thing started, the conversation's flowing then, isn't it?
Of course. Yeah.
And then, you can pick up on cues and you can kind of work with it, but it's just getting that one thing out. And I've still got that stuck to my monitor. Not this monitor, but I do that's my monitor, because it just reminds me sometimes if I'm thinking like, oh God, don't want to do this. What's the one thing? Okay, I can do it now because it's not overwhelming anymore.
No, that's absolutely brilliant. And you'll see the stickers all over my monitor. It's incredible. But no, I mean, you've been great. As a member of the academy for what, 2 years now. Some incredible things, and you've stood up in front of the various groups and presented. And I have to say, and this is genuinely and honestly, you come across so professionally and personable as well when you present. And I'm sure people have said this to you. And it's, as you say, sometimes you've just got to get out of yourself and get out there and do it, because the reality is out there. People want you to be successful. I remember somebody telling me, we used to stand up in front of kind of thousands of people in our previous corporate life. And somebody once said to me, look, Nigel, everybody wants you to succeed. Nobody wants a presentation to fail. Everybody's there with you, for you, and wants you to do really well. And it's almost your inner self, isn't it, saying, oh, I might trip up, or I might say something wrong. And the fact of the matter is, everybody in the room is with you and for you. So you're kind of on the stage with everybody, and it's a happier place if you think like that. So
it is. And then I suppose also that realization that, if something doesn't come out as you intended it to, or you forget to say something, or, you miss a big chunk out that you were supposed to say, who's going to know that apart from you? Nobody else is going to know, are they? It really doesn't matter. But it's taken me quite a long time to get comfortable with that. And I suppose the other part of it is for me that what I try to do when I'm talking like that is to be honest about the journey that we've had, because there have been ups and downs, and I think it's important, because if I can help someone else to overcome something, or to or to realize that there is a solution, or there's someone to ask, then absolutely. I feel that I've done hopefully a fairly good, a good job.
Yes, absolutely. And yourself, Michelle, the group, I kind of love the candor goes on. Everybody's very honest. I don't think I've ever heard we're going to get rich in 3 days. It's not reality, is it? It's not reality. No. So let's dial ourselves into reality. And there's going to be a few bumps along the road, but generally speaking, those bumps, in a community, in a group, somebody's probably experienced something very similar. Not necessarily the bump, but it might be very similar, and it's good to hear how they got over it. But equally, it's good to hear where there have been challenges, because people that are facing the road ahead, it could give them that, I remember what Jo was saying, and I need to make sure I try and avoid that problem. And it can save bumps, which is really,
it can save bumps. And really, also it can save you from feeling like you're really stuck in a quagmire and there's no way out.
Yes.
Because I think another big learning for me has been that there's no linear path here. Like, okay, there's an idea of a linear path, but it's unlikely to be that, because when a challenge comes up, you're going to have to find a solution, think around it, somehow get around it. And that's why the team's there. The team's there to help us to gather all the facts and make that informed decision. But you might find that the decision takes you on a completely different tack to where you were planning to be, and then back again. So I guess, and that's normal. So
it is. very
it
much so.
might help people to realise that it's not always going to be as linear as you hoped it was going to be. That's okay.
It is okay, absolutely. And, you know, and I think you've proven that just putting one step in front of the other, you know, over the period of this particular project has delivered what is an absolutely incredible project. And, you know, I'm sure for years to come, you're going to kind of think back and look back and say, that was just, I don't know how I did it, but I did it, you know, and that's the thing, isn't it? You know, it's really, really important.
Yeah, it has been little steps sometimes.
Yes,
you know,
which is good.
Yeah.
That's fine, you know, because it's at least it's moving forward every time, isn't it? That's the thing. Yeah. Could I ask maybe what lessons you've learnt along the way?
That I'm more resilient than I thought I was. And
Great
the perseverance. Sorry?
Great public speaker.
Okay. Thank you. Michelle and I are both resilient, and that we found perseverance where we thought maybe there wasn't, you know, and I think that is really important. And I'm hoping that those lessons that we're learning are also feeding down into our kind of next generation. Obviously, I've got my son Harris, who's 12, and Michelle's got her daughter Brooke, and I think that they see that too. So inherently, I'm hoping that it kind of goes down through the generations that way, you know, that you can succeed at things if you want to do that. You just have to persevere at it, keep going. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great summary, really. And, you know, how the next generation kind of, how we teach, I guess, how we subtly teach them. And you've probably heard me say from time to time, I tried the Saturday morning, right, let's sit down with a piece of paper and a pen and we're going to talk property, and that just does not work.
No.
It really doesn't. But having the bandwidth, the ability, you know, the frankness, the conversations, you know, with your loved ones, even sometimes on a daily basis, but have them immerse them into the story, I think it's powerful. And
yeah, I mean, if you follow our kind of social media, you'll see we often have them with us. I mean, you know, Harris loves nothing more than to put on his hard hat and his little jacket and have a little wander around, poke about and see what's going on. He loves all that. He's really into it. And Brooke's the same. Brooke likes to get involved too.
Yeah, it's really, really
more, really, because that's learning by osmosis, isn't it? Which is much more exciting than the whole.
Absolutely. So what are your plans for the future?
Well, we are sort of looking at a few projects, potential projects. Michelle and I want to continue working together, so that's we know that. I've got a few things which are close to my heart, which I would like to weave in a bit more strongly as we move forward. I'm not sure how this manifests itself yet, but through my career as a designer, I was working predominantly in the healthcare sector. And I didn't really intend to do that. I sort of fell into that, really. But it really resonated with me because there's a lot about well-being and you know, natural healing and stuff that you do as a designer in the healthcare sector. And there is very real data that proves that by addressing those things like natural light, visibility of green stuff out the windows, leaves, whatever it is, sky, you know, having visual communication with somebody, other people, you know, all those kind of factors can actually make people heal. And so for me, when I'm looking at a building, when I'm looking at the kind of outcome that we might produce, there's a lot in that for me about how can you bring those well-being elements into something that you're designing. It might be that it's lost on the people who have bought the place or using it, renting it, whatever. But I would really like to be able to bring a bit more of that in. And I think over the last few years, the way that people live, work and play has changed. There's a real sort of shift in, you know, people working from home a lot more and needing their spaces to work for them in a different way. There's more of a drive and need for community as well with people, you know, especially if you're working from home, even if it's just seeing one other person in the day, getting out of the house and doing something like that. There's these kind of little bits that are changing around the way that we do things, which I would like to be able to address in the way that we do our developments going forward.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I see a bit of that personally. Actually, we've got one of our businesses, Cornerstone Place, and they're a property company, but focus on helping. They're an impact business, helping solve homelessness basically in the UK, and some of the the projects that they've undertaken has had that element on it, because it's really, really, really important. When you're introducing a beneficiary back into society, there's certain things you can do, and the reality is that it doesn't necessarily have to cost any money at all. All it is, it's just thinking kind of beyond the magnolia walls that used to be, to just maybe putting a bit of colour in, or a feature wall, or the layout of the furniture. These sort of aspects, making sure there's lots of light, etc., is really, really impactful. And I think that sort of service that you're proposing to overlay onto your future developments, I think will be massive, and people will feel so much better in their homes, I think, when they move in, and they probably won't know why.
No.
It's almost like a subconscious thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But it affects, it has a real knock-on effect. And just, you mentioned there, just natural light, having good natural light, or being able to see, even if it's just the sky and what the sky is doing, so that you can tap in to the daily clock. Yeah. And your body can tap into the rhythm of that, and therefore your sleep gets improved, and therefore your hormone levels are improved, and and suddenly there's this huge knock-on effect, isn't there, just for that one simple thing, because you've thought about where a window is going to be, or the size of it, or the aspects at which it looks out on.
Yeah, absolutely. The room that I'm in at the moment, you can probably see there's Veluxes in the ceiling, which is brilliant. And as you say, you can see the clouds going by and all those sort of aspects, and definitely know when it's time to go in, yes. It starts getting dark, but there we go. It's really, really powerful, that. And I think anybody listening and having future developments in the pipeline should really consider that, for sure. So I was very, very grateful actually to my business partner, Mark Stokes. So a couple of years ago, he was writing a book called Advice to Your Younger Self, and it's on Amazon, and you can get hold of that. And he said, Nigel, he said, would you mind writing a chapter? Now, people that possibly know me, I'm not that sort of person. I'm the analytical one. I've got to keep myself to myself, and oh my goodness. But no, I got over myself, and thought, what, I'm going to do this. I am going to do this. And I sat down and I started writing this, all about me really, and the kind of the background and the experiences I'd been through in my life, and where there was key points that if I could have advised my younger self, things would have been maybe a little bit different, or whatever. And I wrote this book, and it was good on a number of levels. The first level was when I read the chapter, when it was finished, I went, blimey, I've done a lot of things in my life. That was number one, because you kind of forget, don't you?
Yeah.
And number two, it gave me the opportunity, we were speaking about, you can't, we've tried sitting down with that piece of paper on a Saturday morning with the kids and talking property. So what I did quite strategically and covertly, probably, I asked my two girls, I said, would you mind proofreading the chapter? Jo, they didn't hold back. I tell you what, there was red pen all over it. There was missed commas, spelling mistakes. They took me to town, honestly, on this on this chapter, but it was great. But what it did do, I think they learned more about me in that chapter than actually they knew I'd done, because you kind of skip across what you've done in life, don't you? And it's in between journeys here or journeys there, but they actually there was the script, there it was, that was me up to the point. And it was very humbling, really. And picked out a few things, and obviously if anybody's reading the book, they can see the advice that was given. So if I put that to you, maybe if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Yeah, gosh. I think I wish I'd understood earlier on in my adult life that it was okay to feel uncomfortable. This idea that get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, because I now understand that whenever I feel a bit uncomfortable, it's usually because I'm out of my comfort zone, right? And then there's growth happening, there's stuff happening, things are moving in the direction that I want them to move in.
Absolutely.
And it's okay to feel a bit uncomfortable when that stuff's happening, and just to sit with it, and it's okay.
Yeah. Because
when I was younger, I have this really unfortunate thing of going bright red if I was, if anything, if I was uncomfortable in any situation, just bright redness. It's so awful when you do that, because you just feel like everyone's looking at you. You're like a beacon of redness. And I just remember it so acutely, kind of at school and stuff. So when that happens, you kind of do everything you can to avoid feeling uncomfortable, because you just know that physically it feels really horrible.
Yes.
So it's taken, quite a long time, let's not say how many years, to figure out that that's actually okay, and that it doesn't, no one's gonna die, nothing's gonna get hurt, it's fine. I just have, take a few breaths, work through it, and you'll be okay. Because I think potentially I would have taken different path, or maybe a path different, done something earlier, or, challenged the norm a bit earlier if I'd have felt that.
Yeah.
Because the early kind of part of my career, and I'm proud of it. I did, I had a good career, and I had, good friendships, and all of those things were there, but it was all kind of very as expected. I didn't push the boundaries very far until I kind of had my little moment of, okay, I've got to do other things here, because this isn't really happening how I want it to.
Absolutely.
And then from that point onward, really, it's been quite uncomfortable quite a lot of the time.
And this is why you've moved on so much. It's an interesting, interesting concept, isn't it? That, again, somebody once told me, this is kind of the lessons learned. Nigel, look, fear and excitement, or nervousness and excitement, actually the feeling's the same.
Yeah, similar.
It's just the head, how it translates it, whether it's into a positive or a negative. Yeah. So I suppose, I remember some stage work we used to do, and there was very much a talking to yourself. This is exciting, not scary, because, as I say, that feeling's the same, the stomach, how you feel in yourself, but it's just how you translate it in your head. It's really.
I have actually done that as well. More recently, kind of, what is that? Okay. Well, I know what I think that is, but I feel excited about it. Whatever it is, I'm going to do. That's exciting. We were talking about speaking earlier, in standing up, and through my kind of working corporate life, had to do that a lot. But I absolutely hated it. I mean, it was awful. I just felt sick every time to do anything like that. So now it's that kind of realization, okay, I'm feeling a bit, I've got to stand up and do stuff. I'm starting to feel the physical things, but no, I'm going to decide that I'm going to feel excited about it, and I'm going to make it an excited feeling. And I totally resonate with that. It's really powerful when you can point your brain in that direction instead of it
you're kind of in control.
Which way it's going.
That's brilliant. It's a great bit of advice there, for sure. How can people follow you or get in touch?
Well, you can have a look at our website, which is jmbh.co.uk. I am on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook as well. So, I'm on LinkedIn too. So you can find me anywhere, really.
Brilliant. That's wonderful. Look, Jo, it's been an absolute pleasure. And over the last 2 years, it's been a pleasure. And thank you so much for joining me today on the Property Developers and Investors podcast. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nigel. It's been a great chat.